Welcome to the Krusty Fox and a new installment of Sex and the Shitty. This week we're doing Prances with Poultry in an episode entitled The Chicken Dance. Click the link on screen now for a playlist that'll catch you up on the whole torrid affair from the very beginning, and I'd recommend you don't miss the top comment at the end of this video. This time it's all about how much of yourself you'd be willing to stick inside a friend, so never let it be said that I don't keep things classy around here. We open on Miranda's apartment, where up-and-coming interior designer and friend of Charlotte's, Madeline Dunn, is busying herself making the whole place look like absolute dog shit. Madeline, or Arlene from True Blood if you're nasty, has been enlisted to spruce up Miranda's new digs prior to the arrival of old friend Jeremy, a London-based writer. His recent emails having taken on a flirty tone is apparently enough to inspire Miranda's participation in Extreme Makeover Desperate Edition. Meanwhile, Carrie's visits to Big's apartment are now so frequent that she finds herself in need of a toothbrush. A bleak and highly telling scene plays out where he gives her a pink replacement head for his electric one, and she calls it the single most encouraging moment so far in their relationship. Now, I'm not a love guru, but if his and hers toothbrushes are the best you can cling to at any stage in a relationship, then my advice would be to cut your losses and slide down the nearest fire escape like there's a 5-alarm nipping at your ass. When Jeremy finally arrives, we're told he's even more adorable than Miranda recalls. Which is fine, I suppose, if you're into men who look like they're at the style intersection of an adult Harry Potter and a member of the Gestapo. When Jeremy, or as he should be credited, Basil Exposition, announces out of nowhere that he's ready for marriage, Miranda pulls this face. No joke, I just wanted you to say it. Her thirsty glee only survives contact with reality for another 10 seconds, however, when Madeline intrudes to deliver an end table, and you can practically hear the blood rush away from Jeremy's head. Miranda very quickly becomes their reluctant third wheel, though considering the absolutely dire English accent Jeremy attempts at one point, I'd say it's for the best. Not quite so easily deterred, a week later Miranda throws Jeremy a farewell party. These are the times when you can tell a lot about who Miranda was growing up. In other words, the girl sat in her parents' basement on prom night, swaddled in 10 miles of tulle just in case the guy who rejected her decided to ditch his real date. Jeremy, dressed like he stumbled into a sofa factory and was accidentally upholstered, proposes a toast to Miranda's hospitality and then abruptly announces that he and Madeline are engaged. Miranda's reaction is this face, which you should remember if you ever think I lean too hard into the whole she's secretly a serial killer thing. I'd also like you to remember Judas York, who ditches Miranda at the bar to go hug the newly betrothed couple like she's hoping that rubbing up against them might give her a marriage-related contact high. Once home, Carrie places another 4 AM call to Big and asks his opinion. He doesn't see Geraldine lasting because he believes that first impressions are only ever physical in nature. In combination with Charlotte's usual doe-eyed optimism and Miranda's fear of being overlooked for the rest of recorded time, Carrie comes up with the basis for this week's column. In a cynical world, do people really still believe in love at first sight? Deciding to start out at the extremes and work backwards, Carrie meets up with Madeline as she struts around a wedding venue with a planner being completely fucking insufferable. As per, Carrie's nosiness lands her in trouble when Madeline, allegedly a huge fan of hers, requests that she harness her penwomanship to write a poem about love for the upcoming reception. Which is, of course, hilarious for 2 reasons. Firstly, anybody scanning Carrie's column and getting poet needs their reading comprehension checked with a fair amount of urgency. And secondly, despite claiming to be all about it, Carrie has about as much aptitude with love as Amber Heard does with normal human mannerisms.
My dog stepped on a bee.
Over grim-looking salads, Carrie moans about her wedding duties to the other ladies. Miranda similarly complains that she's been given responsibility for the guest book, which everybody knows is the safety scissors of wedding duties. Samantha, however, has a more pressing issue to raise. A man she hooked up with after Miranda's party turned out to be a lay from 15 years earlier she'd forgotten about. This deja screw leads Carrie to take another of her swipes at Samantha for her body count, which happens so often that if I were Miss Jones, the most I'd send to Big's funeral would be a note congratulating him on a successful escape. It's also another occasion where Samantha gets a C-plot at best without much of a bearing on proceedings, when it's a damn sight more interesting than what the rest of them have going on. I'll take the adventures of Samantha in Bone Town over Charlotte's Guide to Disney Adulting any day of the week. When the day of the wedding rolls around, Big stops by Carrie's apartment to pick her up, dressed in both a tuxedo and, as expected, a textile factory's worth of red flags. He refuses to sign a gift card for the happy couple and gets twitchy about his name being on the invitation, like he's been implicated in a crime and just got word that a Reddit community is forming a lynch mob. At the venue, Charlotte is introduced to Martin, the usher who'll be escorting her down the aisle, though her wide-eyed reaction gives away that she's already planning to invite him up hers. The newlyweds eventually make their entrance, and Madeline somehow manages the impressive feat of having the least interesting dress in the room. Seriously, look at this shit. It's like she fashioned it out of the leftover marzipan from the wedding cake with all the smooth-brained imagination of a koala. Madeline introduces Carrie to the stage, describing her as one of my favourite writers. I'm assuming that list is rounded out by Beatrix Potter, Dr. Seuss, and whoever's responsible for the inspirational quotes on rhinestoned water bottles. An unenthused Bradshaw trudges her way to the mic, tugging her folded-up poem out from under her left fun bag as if signalling to the room that they should urgently lower their expectations. It's full of twee platitudes that mean literally nothing, like her research involved raiding the Live Laugh Love shelf at a homeware store. But luckily, we're saved from our boredom by Carrie's trademark ability to make any situation, including someone else's wedding, all about her. As she reads from her underboob sonnet, Big steps out to take a call. Suddenly, his reluctance to sign his name next to hers on something as simple as a gift card is put into stark relief against the romantic leap of faith they're celebrating. This moves her to tears, but in fairness, at least it's not the worst experience she'll ever have at a wedding. Hypocrite York heads off with Martin to decorate the bridal suite, and while there, commits the kind of fourth base faux pas that she'd do hard time for if someone else did the same at either of her weddings.
Nice car!
Her belief in love at first sight soon takes a beating, however, when Martin's lecherous father takes her for a spin around the dance floor, which ends in lust at first grope. When Martin angrily refuses to believe it happened, all she's left with is 4 hours of wasted effort and a handprint on her hiney. Carrie finally catches up with Big and has it out with him. She admits that his hardcore resistance to in any way act like he's one half of a couple is a problem, causing their usual, thankfully not quite endless dynamic to kick in right on cue. She suddenly remembers that his emotional development stopped somewhere around the second trimester, and he weaves in and out of opportunities to be accountable for his behaviour like a dog at Crufts with only slightly more control over his drive to hump everything. And, as expected, Carrie chooses to ignore all of it. Because for some reason, the thought of not being with Big is somehow worse than actually having to suffer through a relationship with him. Which, in terms of unpleasantness, ranks somewhere between stubbing your toe and a labial paper cut. One of the last scenes of the episode shows our 4 leading ladies standing in the banqueting hall as the bride throws the bouquet. It lands at their feet, and all of them simultaneously choose to ignore it like it's a sensible life choice. Of course, the only one of them this tracks for is Samantha, who is consistent from her first appearance to her last in having about as much use for marriage as she does chastity belts. The other 3, conversely, stand firm in this resolute rejection of wedded bliss for about as long as Carrie can hold a bottle of her own piss upright. So, that's it for this episode, and now it's time for last week's top comment. I asked whether you'd wear your friend like a ventriloquist's dummy if they needed your help with an intimate issue like Samantha did for Carrie. And you know what? All of your comments were great, but the common theme seemed to be that while you do it for a friend, you wouldn't for Carrie specifically, which is beyond understandable. And a special shout out to Fiery Euro Chick who came through with some actual advice, which is probably good for those of any gender if you get carried away with something that doesn't have a flared base. Don't pretend you don't know what I'm talking about. As for this week's question, do you agree with the assessment of most of this episode's characters that Madeline and Jeremy's whirlwind romance is doomed, or could they be in with a shot? Answers in the comments below please, and the best will make an appearance next time. If you enjoyed this episode, then please leave a like to let me know, and subscribe for more every week. And since we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, please do share the channel with anyone you think will get a kick out of it. Either way, thanks for watching, and as ever, if you can't be good, be crusty.